We are giving far too many vaccines to young children. This does not mean that we should stop all vaccines. But why can't we question? This was Sridhar Vembu in a post on X on October 30th of 2025. Sridhar Vembu has been raising questions on the unchecked and unregulated proliferation of vaccines for children and adults that is creating more diseases than they are curing. It began with a simple question, one that every civilization rooted in conscience must ask. Why, in a nation that gave birth to Ayurveda, Yoga, and world's oldest sciences of inner and outer healing, are we now told that only chemicals, injections, and corporations can save us? And no one can ask any questions. How did a land that once taught the world to align with nature's intelligence become the most lucrative market and consumer of patented molecules? And why does every voice that dares to ask, from Patanjali's Baba Ramdev to Zoho's Sridhar Vembu, face derision from the very establishment that claims to represent science? This is not merely a debate about vaccines or one company's advertisement. It is a story of how modern world industrialized medicine, criminalized healing, and commodified life itself. Most importantly, how India now stands as humanity's last civilizational refuge against that profiteering machinery. In ancient India, medicine was not an industry. You see, it was a covenant, a sacred responsibility between the Ved, who was the healer, the Prakriti, the nature, and the Jeev, who was a living being. Health or swasthya meant to be established in the self. The healer's task was not to attack the disease itself, but to restore equilibrium, the physical, the mental, and spiritual. Ayurveda, Yoga, and Siddha formed a unified system that understood the body as microcosm of the cosmos. The fire, water, air, earth, and space, the Panch Mahabhut, were not merely metaphors, but energetic patterns of metabolism, immunity, and consciousness. Diagnoses came from observation and intuition. The Nadi Pariksha, pulse reading, Darshan Pariksha, observation, or Prashna Pariksha, inquiry. They were all rolled into one. Questions are now replaced by numerous expensive tests that often share a lot but miss the critical. A skilled Ved, on the other hand, could feel disharmony in the pulse long before the disease had even manifested, something no modern scanner can replicate now. Healing was participatory. Patient and physician walked together. The herbs, the food, the mantra, and the mindfulness all acted as allies, not interventions. There were no patents because nature cannot be owned. This knowledge was not superstition, you see, it was applied cosmology, a living science verified through centuries of empirical refinement. It built deep personal awareness. Dependence was not its signature. It healed without impoverishing the victim. Then came the industrial age, and with it, a new alchemy of profit. The spirit was discarded disdainfully. In 1870, John D. Rockefeller, already the richest man in the United States through Standard Oil, found a new opportunity: the organic chemistry. Chemists had discovered that petroleum could yield synthetic compounds, which are the foundation of modern pharmaceuticals. But unlike herbs, these petrochemical derivatives could be patented. They could be manufactured and then sold at massive margins. But there was a problem. The world already had competing systems. You see, the herbalism, homeopathy, Ayurveda, naturopathy, the Native American and the Chinese medicines, they were all inexpensive and effective. But to monopolize healing, Rockefeller first had to discredit and dismantle these systems, which he did. Together with steel magnate Andrew Carnegie, he funded the Flexner Report in 1910, a document that redefined medical science in North America. And this report dismissed all non-chemical schools as unscientific quackery. The medical colleges teaching holistic or plant-based medicine were shut down en masse. Research funding flowed only to those who conformed to the new paradigm of pharmacology, surgery, and radiology. To cement control, Rockefeller endowed universities, created General Education Board, and later the Rockefeller Foundation. These institutions standardized medical curricula, rewrote the entire textbooks, and trained a generation of doctors to equate health with chemical intervention. The Council on Medical Education and American Medical Association were all funded by Rockefeller, and they became the gatekeepers of the medical science. A new priesthood was born, you see, armed with not with herbs and mantras or diagnosis, but with syringes and stock options. By 1950, the petrochemical pharmaceutical industry was the most profitable enterprise on earth. The disease had become a marketplace, and healing had been bastardized into a business model. Petroleum now permeates every layer of our modern life, not only fuels and plastics, but food, cosmetics, and medicine. The solvents which are used in drug synthesis, like say benzene, toluene, xylene, are actually derived from crude oil. The common preservatives like parabens and additives like TBHQ, found in everything from bread to cosmetics, are petrochemical byproducts linked to endocrine disorders and cancers. Yet these compounds dominate the global supply chains because they are cheap, they are patentable, and scalable. Three words that nature never understood. When Rockefeller's Standard Oil allied with Germany's IG Farben in 1920s, it became the conglomerate that later produced Zyklon B, which was used in the Nazi death camps. And so chemistry and commerce fused into a global new order. Health was now an industry and had nothing to do with restoration of health, you see. Every chemical innovation created new dependencies, the antibiotics, the analgesics, and the steroids, each treating symptoms as spawning while they were creating new ailments. Cancer rates soared, immunity was weakened, but the profits, well, they multiplied. Thus, humanity was slowly re-engineered. Its biology was synchronized with the industrial economy. The healer was made to vanish, and the patient only remained a consumer. While indigenous systems in China, Europe, and Americas were either co-opted or criminalized, India's civilizational continuity preserved the remnants of the holistic healing. From the forests of Kerala to the Himalayan Gurukul, Ayurveda survived somehow, not because of state policy, but because of civilizational resilience. It was despite the state policy, actually, why the Ayurveda still survived. Because after independence, India's own elite, the educated in the colonial medicine, viewed Ayurveda as folk wisdom. Government patronage went overwhelmingly to the Western medicine. By the 1990s, even the Ayurvedic drug industry had begun mimicking the pharmaceutical models, reducing the formulations to capsules and powders for export rather than inner alignment. And yet, there was some kind of a counter current which was always there, and it emerged after 2014. The Ayush ministry, Ayurveda, Yoga, and naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, and homeopathy, combined together, it signaled a new national awakening in medicine. Research institutions, pharmacopoeias, and international MOUs began reviving legitimacy for these sciences. Entrepreneurs like Baba Ramdev and Acharya Balakrishnan of Patanjali created mass awareness, and they try to bridge tradition with modern distribution. And that is precisely why they became targets. When Indian Medical Association dragged Patanjali to the court for misleading advertisements, it wasn't merely defending consumer rights, you see. It was defending a century-old monopoly. IMA's outrage at Patanjali's critique of allopathy exposed a deeper wound, a system that cannot tolerate comparison because comparison may reveal its own corruption. And the Supreme Court's language, which was trying to threaten officials with, "we will rip you apart," reflected the institutional anger, not jurisprudence. They had a colonial mindset as well. It was as if Patanjali's challenge had punctured an empire's sanctity itself. Behind the legal drama lies a real contest. You see, the global pharmaceutical industry, it's worth $1.5 trillion, and it fears the rise of an indigenous alternative. India's Ayurvedic market alone is growing at 15% CAGR, and it's projected to cross 1.2 trillion Indian rupees by 2028. If Ayurveda regains the mainstream legitimacy, the chemical empire's foundations will tremble, because India is probably for them the largest pharmaceutical market. Hence, the vilification of anything alternative has become the norm. This is not about Ramdev's tone or advertisements. It is about the control over humanity's biological destiny by a few. Now, let's get back to Sridhar Vembu again. When Zoho's CEO publicly questioned the uncritical expansion of vaccines, citing reports of adverse reactions and the need for nuanced debate, the response was instantaneous and big. There was outrage, ridicule, and moral panic. Wembu's question was not extremist. He did not reject vaccination. He asked why the conversation must be all or none. Why can't science accommodate uncertainty and questioning? Why are studies linking vaccine overload to autoimmune or neurodevelopment disorders dismissed outright without any evidence? His concern mirrors the unease of millions of parents worldwide who are actually witnessing an explosion of autism, autoimmune diseases, and neuroinflammation phenomena that correlate temporally, if not causally, with rising vaccine schedules and chemical exposures through the medical fraternity. Yet, mainstream medicine refuses even to study the hypothesis. Just imagine, there are no objective research studies into this phenomena at all, and all the questions are rejected. And just as in the church, even the act of questioning is to invite excommunication. Dr. Datta, there was a thread that was going on after Sridhar Vembu wrote his original expose, where Dr. Datta of AIIMS, the revered All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi, he responded respectfully to Sridhar Vembu, urging responsibility and caution on Vembu's part. But his argument revealed the deeper issue. The medical establishment sees public inquiry as dangerous because it distrusts people's ability to discern truth without its guidance. This is not science. This is paternalism. And it is the same paternalism that has silenced Ayurveda for over a century now. When questioning itself becomes heresy, science degenerates into bigotry and ideology. The medical industrial complex today functions as an extension of the global deep state, a mesh of pharmaceutical lobbies, academic institutions, NGOs, and global agencies that dictate what counts as health itself. The World Health Organization is now funded largely by private foundations and corporate interests, and it shapes national policies under the guise of global standards. India's vaccination drives, the drug approvals, and dietary guidelines are often traced their origin to these transnational boards. The Indian Medical Association, or the IMA, with historical ties to the Western medical associations, funded and set up by the same John D. Rockefeller, still operates as a domestic enforcer of this very orthodoxy that Rockefeller started, branding indigenous knowledge as superstition while quietly lobbying for Western patents and insurance integration. And the result is that the natural immunity is always derided. Booster dependency is celebrated. The herbal pharmacology is ignored. Synthetic molecules are fast tracked. Preventive care gets very token budgets, but curative interventions, they get billions of dollars. In this framework, the doctor today has become a technician for corporate pipelines. He is no longer a healer for the human bodies now. See, the root cause in all this is profitability because it's a business model, right? You cannot patent sunlight or soil microbes or turmeric, even though they try to do so. But you can patent a synthetic analog, run a clinical trial, and own the molecule for the next 20 years. Thus, nature had to be vilified. To sell chemistry, one must first delegitimize ecology. Rockefeller understood this perfectly. His campaign against the unscientific medicine was a commercial war disguised as philanthropy. The same playbook continues even today. It happens every time a natural remedy is branded as unproven, while a new chemical pill is launched with proprietary data without full disclosures and even reliable testing. Even food has been captured. Vegetable oils are actually derived from petroleum. Artificial flavorings, preservatives are all sold as progress while they corrode the human biome. And yes, please remember this. There is absolutely no vegetable in vegetable oil. It is made by refining petrochemical base. So congratulations on feeding petrol to your family every day thanks to the criminal silence and collaboration of the doctors and the medical fraternity. And when lifestyle diseases explode, the same companies offer drugs to manage the fallout. You see, it's a perfect loop of dependency, an algorithm of illness engineered for perpetual revenue. India's uniqueness lies in having preserved a continuum of consciousness. Here, the line between science, spirituality, and sustainability never really broke entirely, even though they tried. A farmer chanting to the soil, a yogi meditating on the breath, a Ved balancing the doshas, all operate from one axiom that nature heals when understood, not when conquered. This worldview now holds the key to humanity's survival. As climate, food, and health crises converge, the world looks again to the traditional wisdom, to Ayurveda's microbiome awareness, yoga's neuroplasticity, and Siddha's alchemical precision. But revival cannot mean nostalgia. India must modernize without westernizing. Re-establish research that honors the principles of Ayurveda while meeting the global rigor. Train a new generation of healers who see data and dharma as allies, not opposites. It also means challenging the legal and epistemic monopolies that define the scientific evidence solely through reductionist trials. Holistic systems operate on complex causality, not linear control, and that is why their validation must reflect that. To reclaim healing, India must lead a civilizational shift from interventionist model to an integrative paradigm. And we must start by re-educating, revamp the medical curricula to include Ayurveda, yoga, and biophysics of consciousness. Every MBBS graduate should understand Prakriti and lifestyle medicines as foundational and not fringe subjects. The research should be funded. We need to fund long-term cohort studies on non-specific effects of vaccines, dietary chemicals, and environmental toxins. Sridhar Vembu has proposed it and must have the participation from doctors throughout India. You see, we need to make inquiry sacred again and fashionable for the scientists who become worse than pastors and ideologues today. We need to regulate fairly. We need to apply the same scientific scrutiny to pharmaceutical claims as we do to herbal formulations. There cannot be any double standards, right? One set of rules for Ayurveda and another set of rules for allopathic vaccines. And then we need to relocalize health, empower community healers, herbal growers, and wellness centers, and decentralize health from hospitals to homes. Re-spiritualize the medicine itself. We need to restore the healer's role as a custodian of life's fundamental systems, not merely a technician of chemical application. See, this is a reintegration, the merging of modern analytics with ancient awareness. Let us be very clear. It is not regression, as many bigoted medical professionals may like to call it. It's actually progress. Dr. Datta's from the thread of Sridhar Vembu, his willingness to consider a joint study is encouraging, but the challenge is larger than any one individual, you see. It demands courage from the entire medical fraternity to acknowledge that their profession, which was born from a noble intent, has become colonized by the capitalists. Doctors today must choose whether they'll remain custodians of an interventionist economy, defending every injection, every pill, every protocol, or will they reclaim the ancient oath of healing to first do no harm and to see patient as a life, not as a statistic. The world is watching India. From Silicon Valley to Sao Paulo, people are abandoning chemical dependency and turning to Ayurveda, yoga, and plant-based living. Wellness tourism, meditation research, Ayurvedic biotech, these are not fads anymore. They are symptoms of civilizational fatigue with synthetic living. If India can institutionalize authenticity, balancing science with spirit, it can become the healing capital of the planet itself. The outreach by India's Ayush ministry to 25 countries and global research collaborations mark the first steps towards that destiny. But this renaissance will face resistance from pharma lobbies, from funded media, even judiciary mindsets which have been molded by the Western medical supremacy. Hence the importance of voices like Sridhar Vembu's, which are reasoned, data literate, and yet civilizationally rooted. He represents a new Indian archetype, you see, the technologist philosopher who fuses data science with dharmic ethics. Healing is not an industry, you see, it's intelligence in motion. Every cell, every microbe, every herb is a manifestation of that intelligence. The tragedy of modern science, of modern medicine, is that it mistakes control for understanding. We inject chemicals into food, soil, and bodies, thinking we were conquering disease, only to unleash new epidemics of disconnection. We outsourced immunity to factories, and then we called it progress. But life is not a laboratory. It is a sacred continuum of relationships between humans, microbes, and cosmos. India still remembers this truth. That remembrance is now humanity's last hope. The path is neither to reject allopathy or to romanticize tradition. It is to build a pluralistic health civilization where multiple knowledge systems coexist and cross-fertilize. Let the chemical medicine handle crisis. Let Ayurveda prevent them. Let surgery save life. Let yoga sanctify it. Let pharmaceuticals manage the pain. Let nature teach resilience. As Sridhar Vembu's dialogue with Dr. Datta showed, the debate must replace dogma. If science is truly humble and honest, it will listen. It does not need to censor questioning, because the real epidemic today is not disease, but the arrogance of certainty without full evidence. A century ago, Rockefeller replaced the healer's lamp with a chemist's burner. In doing so, he eliminated profits but darkened the health of this planet. Now the flame returns to where it first burned, so brightly, Bharat, the land that saw consciousness as medicine and the cosmos as a clinic. The question that Sridhar Vembu asked, why can't we question, echoes that ancient fire itself. It is a spark of Atmavichar. In the realm of biology, the right to inquire into life without fear, that is the most critical part of this journey. If India answers that question with integrity, if it revives the art of healing without surrendering to the industry of illness, then once again humanity will know that our rishis knew many thousands of years ago that nature is not our pharmacy, it is us, an extension of life and consciousness. Once disturbed, there is no healing possible. Jai Hind.